Hello, sometimes these videos are as good for me as they are for you because I have to remind myself of what's important. So the topic today is just about catching yourself in a state that is not, good for you and then changing it. And I thought of this because I saw a comment from River of Wellness, and she was saying that yesterday was so great, maybe 14 hours, just having a good day, not thinking about tinnitus, really starting to feel like she's habituating to it and everything going great. And then she wakes up in the morning and it's loud, it's bothersome, she's feeling anxious, and so then not so good. Now, I think we all have different ways that we go about going from being in a good mood to being in an anxious state, and it's different for everybody, but in many ways it is the same. I'm trying to say less. I hope I can do it. But what I want to say is just that it's important to be able to identify when you're feeling anxious about tinnitus or whatever else and say, this is what I'm thinking right now, and therefore this is why I'm anxious. And then it's also important then to be able to identify, well, what could you do as an alternative to the way you're feeling, going about feeling anxious. It's really interesting how sometimes we can actually know that we're feeling anxious and know that we're doing things that make us continue to be anxious, and yet we continue to do the same thing and be anxious. I'll give you a simpler example or two if I can. So here's a simple example. If I'm driving down the street and there's a lot of traffic and I'm running late, I know that if I start worrying about how I'm going to be late, if I start being concerned about the other drivers and what they're doing and how they're causing things to be inconvenient for me, or how they're driving selfishly, I'm going to get in an anxious state. I know that. So why would I do it anyway and yell at the other drivers and worry about how I'm going to be late and think about what I'm going to tell the people and explain to them why I'm late and that sort of thing? Why do that? You simply don't have to do it. You don't have to do that. You don't have to go through that process of, if you start yelling at other drivers and you start worrying about being late and you start getting tense and it's not going to be good for you. You're going to be anxious. So why do you do that? Yeah. And then let's take another example. Okay, you just got some news that, oh, my shirt. Oh, I'm so sexy. You just got some news that, let's think about something like this. You're going to have to appear in court. Let's say that. Maybe you got a traffic ticket, or maybe, but you have to go. You have to do something that's going to be stressful. You have to appear in court. So then you start thinking about, what could go wrong if you go to court, or it could be you've got to go to the doctor, and because they found out you've got maybe you need another test, maybe you need a cancer test, I don't know. You've got a toothache, so then you start thinking about this toothache. You start thinking about going to court. You start thinking about having to be tested at the doctor. And then you keep thinking about it. And if you keep thinking about that thing, you're going to be anxious. So why do you do that? You see? So it's very important to be able to catch yourself and say, no, I'm not going to sit here and think about this all the time and be anxious. And with tinnitus, I know at first, when you first get tinnitus, it's hard not to think about it. But I'm talking to people who keep going back to it and keep being anxious about it. You know, if you start talking about how loud it is and you start thinking about how it's making you anxious, you're going to be anxious. So this is where I talk about you probably need some more training. I mean, we all do. We all sometimes go back to being anxious sometimes. And there are sometimes some special circumstances. It's a new circumstance and we're a little bit scared about something. And then we get anxious. But okay, even something new. You know, if you think about it enough and think about what could go wrong, you're going to be anxious. So this is the training. You've got to be able to see that and know what will happen if you do that, and then you have to be willing to change. And the interesting thing about anxiety, for the most part, is that if you change what you're thinking, you're going to be less anxious. So that's why I constantly tell people, study a language, draw. I've been studying today as usual, studying my Chinese. Draw, dance, learn a dance routine. I don't care if you can't dance. Pull up YouTube and find a video of how to do the electric slide and go do the electric slide. It's so stupid, I know. But what's more stupid? Continuing to do this anxious state thing, right? So you know, if you go get a video and you do the electric slide or learn how to moonwalk or learn how to do the wave or something, you know, popping and locking, I think that's what they call that. So you know, if you do that, it's probably going to be superior than you sitting there worried about your tinnitus or your toothache or appearing in court, or, you know, I guess you can't dance while you're driving, but you could listen to some language tapes and do something like that. So what else? You can study so many different things and improve your knowledge. With the language, I love it because you can find language partners and you can talk to them. That's kind of fun. And they're trying to learn your English, and I'm trying to learn, say, Spanish or Chinese. That's kind of fun. There's an app called Hello Talk. I kind of like it. So you can do yoga. You can do swimming, jogging, running, going to the gym. You can try on some different clothes and take pictures of yourself. You can rearrange your room. I haven't done that in a while, but maybe if you rearrange your room, it'll change your thinking a little bit. So that's what I'm getting at. When it comes to anxiety, you've trained yourself to do that really, really well. Tinnitus is really good at quickly making you learn how to be anxious all the time. So I get it, I know. But now you've got to say, well, I know by sitting here thinking about this thing over and over again, I'm going to be anxious. So I've got to do something else. In the beginning stages of tinnitus, when you're in the first week, month, even a few months, even 1 year, it can be really difficult not to think about tinnitus. I know. So that's what all this training is about. You draw, you write Chinese. That's what I did. I'm talking to myself, not just you. You do things and get involved in those things until you start being good at switching from anxious to doing something that you enjoy. Learn how to sing a song. Me singing a Chinese song, I did this a lot when I was really anxious because I was, you know, I felt like just by singing, I would memorize line by line. I'd sing the first few lines, and it might take some time, and then I'd sing the next few, and then I'd do 8 lines in a row, and then 16 lines in a row, until I could remember the song. But what is my brain doing? I'm doing something kind of pleasant, singing, and I'm spending less time being anxious, less time listening to my tinnitus, and more time listening to what I'm singing. 真情像草原广阔，桑桑风雨不能阻隔，总有一云开日去时。Oh, I forgot a little bit, but you see what I'm getting at. I had to practice that, and I was practicing doing that instead of practicing being anxious. And tinnitus will help you practice being anxious. Right? So you're going to have to practice something else. And you're going to get, if you're new to it especially, you're going to get anxious again, and then you have to practice again, doing something else. You need to practice until you're good at doing something else besides being anxious. Okay, that's my message for today. Practice now. No, wait, now.